Manny Collins here for Brutus Monroe. Today we're going to create this donut themed card. Let's go over the products I use. From Brutus Monroe, I'm using this small stamp called Sprinkles, and it has this donut and a little sentiment that reads, whatever sprinkles your donut. We're also going to use the Sprinkled with Love paper collection. This is a 6x6 paper pad, and it has some double-sided paper. I'm going to use this little scrap here. It's the pink with the sprinkles all over, and I've already trimmed this down. As you can see, I just cut it from here, and the other side has polka dots, like watercolor polka dots. All these papers are double-sided, and they're such fun paper pad. Here's a quick thumb through. There's little clouds, circles, lots of sprinkles, waffle cone, a little swirl design there. So you'll see a couple more cards made with this throughout the month. So this is as part of the inspiration box paper pad. We're also going to be doing some embossing. So I have some embossing ink, our embossing powder in Alabaster and in Raven. We'll be using our Aqua pigments today, and I have a few of them, and I have peach, neon purple, turquoise, and then actually that's peach, the other one was pink, I'm sorry, brown and yellow. I'm going to mix the peach and the brown together to get our donut color. I will have those listed in the description box. I know I went through them really quick. Like always, I put everything I use in the description box with links to the shop. So Not Your Mama's cardstock, I made my card base. I have layering cardstock in pink and teal or turquoise, a little scrap of white, and then another little scrap for stamping our sentiment on. I'm going to go ahead and set all of this aside really quickly, and I'm going to show you. I went ahead and did 2 of these in the turquoise icing ahead of time off screen, just to show you what we're going to be creating. So we're going to stamp and emboss our little image and then color it in with our aqua pigment. So let's jump to it. I have our embossing ink here and our embossing powder in Alabaster. I'm going to stamp our image, and I have a scrap piece of cardstock. As you can see, that's where I stamp and cut our previous donuts from. I'm going to go ahead and stamp on this. I also have my stick and stamp mat in my stamping platform that holds my paper in place. The magnets are holding the mat in place, but not the paper. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and stamp my image, and of course it's with clear sticky embossing ink, so you can't quite see it. You might a little bit if I tilt it. And I'm going to bring in a scrap piece of paper and put my embossing powder on it. My embossing powder is white, so it'll be white on white, but you'll see it as we color the image. It'll pop up. Okay, so now let me get this closed enough out of our way before I spill it. I'm going to use a clothespin here to hold my paper, to keep my fingers out of the way, and I'll use my heat tool to emboss, to heat set the embossing powder. You'll know when your embossing powder is set when it goes from a matte to a shiny, and you want that fully heat set all the way across. I go front and back to minimize my warping. Alright, so that's all set. I'm going to fussy cut this out with my scissors. They are dies that coordinate with these stamp set, with this little stamp, but I do not have them, so I'm just going to go ahead and fussy cut it out. It's pretty simple. It's a circular shape, and with it being embossed, it's easier to go around it. And I go a little bit off screen here, so I want to apologize ahead of time, just to let you know. Right here, since it's white on white, it's hard for me to see, so I need to bring it a little closer to myself so I can see it better. Alright, so now that it's all cut out, I'm going to bring in my pigment palette. I already have all my pigments on there because, like I previously colored the other 2 images. So that little mixture that you see between there is the peach and the brown. I also have a little water bucket with clean water in it, and I'm using a fine detail watercolor brush. It's about a 0 to a 2. Any of those would work for you. You just want a nice small detail brush for this. So now I'm going to go ahead and mix the peach and the brown, and it gives me a nice color like a toasted donut color. So I'm going to use that all around the edge of this image and where it's been chomped on, because everybody loves donuts, so little bites are going off there. And once that's set, I'm going to move on to my pink color. So I'm going to go ahead and go and put the aqua pigment throughout here on the for the icing, and I'm just goes pretty easily, and since it's embossed, it resists the area where the sprinkles are. For the sprinkles, I'll use the other colors that are left on my palette to color them in. So I'm just going to do this last little bit here of my icing, and I'm just making sure to go around the sprinkles, and it goes pretty quickly because it's a pretty small image. And I go back on the edges of the icing and do that a little bit darker so that it looks like, nice thick icing. Alright, so I'm picking up some of this purple, and this is the neon purple. That's the only purple I have as right now, so I'm using that one. And I'm going to color in some of these sprinkles. Then I'll move on to the next color. See, I'm going to try to show you here. Didn't quite. You'll see a little bit more in the photos. Now I'll fill in the next set of sprinkles with some yellow, and I move throughout. I don't cluster, a bunch of yellow, a bunch of purple. I move throughout the donut so that it looks like they've been sprinkled on. Then I move on to my last color, which is the turquoise. And I did the same thing for the other two donuts that I colored off screen, except that I just used the teal as the main background color because I wanted those colors for the icing. Alright, so I'm going to finish these last few little sprinkles, move my palette out of the way, and our donut is ready. So I'm going to give that a second to dry. So while that's drying, I'm going to go ahead and stamp our sentiment. I'm also going to be embossing this sentiment, and I'll be using our Raven embossing powder. So I'm going to use my anti-static powder here on my little strip. Then I'll stick it into my stick and stamp mat. So you can see there are no magnets holding the strip here because the stick and stamp mat will do that. It's a nice sticky mat. I'm going to say it's a low tack, and it'll hold your cardstock in place. So I'm going to go ahead and ink up my image with our embossing ink, and then I will, well, it's not my image, my sentiment with our embossing ink, and then I will use our Raven embossing powder on this. Gotta get that W, wouldn't come through there for a second. Didn't press hard enough. Alright, so I'm going to grab my scratch piece of paper here, and then I'll sprinkle that out, and now you can see it a little better. Shake out any of the excess. Right, funnel that back into my little container and close it before I make a big mess by tipping and spilling it. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and quickly heat set this. And then I will trim this down with a little fishtail on one end. I'm just also going to set this to the side, let that cool, move everything off, wiping any embossing powder that got on my desk. Alright, so here are our 3 donuts. I'm going to use some foam adhesive on the pink donut only. So I'm going to grab my foam adhesive really quickly. So I cut that out because it's really boring just to watch me put foam adhesive on there and remove the backing, especially since I have such a hard time removing the backing. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and adhere our 2 layers together. I have the pink layer and the teal layer, and I've trimmed the teal layer just a little bit smaller, about 1/8 of an inch, give or take, smaller than our pink layer. And the pink layer has been cut just about the same, smaller than my card base, so that I have this nice layered look to my card. I'm using some Barely Art glue to adhere those pieces together. I'm going to adhere our little sprinkled paper on here, and this has been trimmed just shorter so that I have a nice little border on the top and bottom. Once I adjust this, because I did not get it even on here. Alright, there we go. Nope. Still haven't gotten it quite even. I put it on crooked. So, alright, so now that it's nice and even on here, I press it in place, and I'm going to adhere this panel onto my card. Onto my card base. Get this on here, and again, like I said, this is going to have just a little bit of white showing of our card base. Press that into place, and now that white little strip will go on the bottom, just so that our donuts have somewhere to land, so they don't look like they're just floating there. So this gives us somewhere, so it kind of anchors them basically. So I'm going to put this little strip right here on the bottom, and it goes edge to edge. So it covers the bottom, all the layers. Trim off any excess. I had just a smidgen longer than my card. Once I do that, we can start adhering our donuts. So I'm going to fuss a little bit here, and I want my two blue donuts or teal donuts to go like this, and then the pink one's going to overlap them. So I'm going to go ahead and place this one, and I want it going just off the sprinkled paper. And then the bottom one, I want it just touching our white little banner that goes across the edge. I don't want it too much overlapping, but just enough. And then our pink one will overlap both of those. And I wanted this teal one to be a little further down, but once it was on there, it was on there. I will give it to Barely Art Glue. It works fabulous. It has a nice strong hold. Okay, so now we go ahead and add our center pink donut. And now we can go ahead and add our sentiment. Like I said, I fishtailed the end, and I also put some foam adhesive behind that, and I put that towards the bottom left. I'm going to finish this card off with some little clay bits from my stash. These are flat, round clay bits. Instead of using sequins, I thought this would look better with our card. It gives us that feel of sprinkles. You can finish your card however you like, if you like sequins or nothing at all. The little donuts are just so much fun on their own. And our card is complete. Look how much fun those donuts are. So we've done some embossing and aqua pigment coloring. So let's go over everything we used for our card today. We used the Sprinkled with Love pattern paper. We used the Sprinkles stamp set, some embossing ink, and then Alabaster and Raven embossing powder. We used yellow, peach, brown, neon purple, pink, and turquoise aqua pigment. But I will have everything listed and linked in the description box below for you. Thank you for being here, and I hope you found some inspiration.